The following is a conversation with Ronald Reich, a leadership development coach with over 30 years of experience. Ron's work bridges the gap between emotional intelligence and high-impact leadership. Today, we explore the stories, strategies, and moments that define his approach. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast, and I'm your host, Sid Ben Salah. Together, we uncover the essence of effective leadership in every arena of life. Now, let's get into it. Ron, welcome to the show.
Oh, Sid, thank you. It's good to be here.
Ron, you've spent decades in the leadership space. What first drew you into this world, and what kept you so passionate about helping leaders grow?
Sid, it's such an interesting story. When I began my career all those years ago, I started out in human resources. I was with a major bank here in the United States, and this was back in the mid 80s when there were so many mergers taking place and everything else. Our bank was acquired and, just all kinds of upheaval, long story fine. A number of us decided to leave and open our own HR consulting firm, which we did. It was there for about 5, 6 years, and we decided for a number of different reasons to shut the doors. And throughout all of those years, the first 10, 11 years of my career, HR was fun. It was okay. It was nothing about which I was totally passionate. I always had the inkling I would love to get into training and development. I would just love to do that. At the time, I was going through a real ugly divorce, and I had nowhere to live except moving back in with my mom and dad. So I'm here, and I got a telephone call from a gentleman in Dallas, Texas, on the other side of the country, essentially, saying, I know who you are, Ron. I've got a position with Toshiba that is the exact opposite of what you are. They're looking for somebody who has a lot of training and some HR. You've got a lot of HR and some training. I can get you in front of them. Your job, get them to flip their competencies. I talked with the people at Toshiba. They flipped their competencies, and I have been in training and development since. And just to pull it through too, and I'm proud of this, I was doing mostly sales training in the beginning, which was fine. I mean, it was training. It was just all kinds of, it was all new for me, everything. My boss and my boss's boss must have seen something in me that I didn't see, because they came to me after about a year and a half and said, we'd like to get you into some other things. We'd like to get into some leadership development. One thing led to the next. And Sid, we don't know each other well. And actually, this is part of
Mm-hmm.
emotional intelligence, which
Mm-hmm.
we're going to talk about. I can say to you very proudly and very confidently, I'm good at what I do. I know what I'm doing, and I'm good at it. And I hope that comes across as confident, not arrogant, because that's how I
Good. Looking back, can you pinpoint a moment when you realize you were truly making a difference in someone's leadership journey?
am. The story, there are a couple of them. I finished up I finished up a leadership session for a client, and as we were leaving, one of the participants came up to me and shook my hand, and he said, you have made a difference in so many different areas of my life. You have made me a better leader. You have made me a better man. You're going to make me a better husband, and you're going to make me a better father. And I was like, wow. Yeah, and again, realizing, Sid, the point being, too, for me, one of the reasons I love this so much is because it impacts all areas of people's lives. It's not just, oh, yes, you need to be a good leader at work, and here are some tips and techniques about how to do that. It's applicable everywhere, just everywhere. It's what they're life
Yeah,
lessons.
yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. Look, you mentioned earlier that you transitioned from HR into executive coaching. Can you share what that transition was like and what lessons you learned along the way, Ron?
The transition was realizing that there are different competencies involved in
Mm-hmm.
every single job, just in every single job. And it was true for me. I needed to be when I was doing sales training, there were certain competencies I needed to have. I needed to understand the sales process. I needed to understand what sales reps, what their lives were like, from a work perspective and all these other things. And when I transitioned into the leadership work, just realizing that that the competencies for the leaders were drastically different, what they, the things they needed to be able to do, and also myself because now I'm not just talking about transactional things with sales. Now it's about now it's about relationships. Now it's about getting things done through other people. And I mean, it was so enlightening to me and just realizing, and I mean, I always knew this on some level, of course. Everybody is so different and that what works for Sid may not work for Ron and may not work for Gloria. And yet, part of it will work. And I think that was just a big part of it is realizing that you need to adjust to everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
fun for me too.
And how did that experience shape the way you approach coaching today?
Sid, just that is that one of the things I always want to do when I start working with a new client is just get to know the individual a little bit better, both personally and professionally. And there's research around this. I am a voracious reader, which is something else that has helped to
Mm-hmm.
make me very successful. Oh, and what I mean by that, the research shows so clearly the better you know the people with whom you work, the more effectively you will work with them. You need to get to know people personally, professionally. What are your passions at work? What do you love to do? What don't you like about your job and the company? What do you like to do at home? What's your family like? Just, all of these different things make up the entire individual. And when I know the individual, on a deeper level, it
Yeah,
helps
yeah.
everybody.
Look, Ron, for sure you worked with countless individuals, leaders. How do you identify the characters or behaviors that signal potential for leadership excellence, if I may use this word, excellence?
I think there are always going to be some consistent competencies across the board that that good leaders need to possess. Number one, the ability,
Mm,
like we were just saying, to get along with people, the ability to make connections between things, the ability to see things from a big picture perspective. And one of the other things too is that I always talk to organizations about what are you looking for in your leaders? Because again, while people are all individual, absolutely, so are organizations. All these organizations are unique. They all have cultures unto themselves. They're all going to have different sets of competencies. And so, again, it goes back to really, really just getting
mm.
to know the people. I mean, I did a session not long ago, maybe 3 weeks, whatever it may have been. And it was for supervisors and first level managers. And there was a young guy in the session who just impressed me greatly. I mean, with what we were talking about, we went through the DISC assessment and he was making connection. He was, wow, yeah, you need to use this not only with your colleagues, you need to use this with clients, you need to use this with anybody with whom you interact. And he was seeing the big picture of a lot of different things. And I was just saying to him, was like, you know, Jeff, you've got a lot of stuff going on here in a good way. I mean, I really could see you doing well. And I mean, it's just those sorts of things. People say, I've been
Mm.
asked countless times, are leaders made or are they born? And my response is always the
Yeah.
same. It's both. I believe we are all
Yeah.
born with
Yeah.
certain innate
Yeah.
leadership qualities. If leaders are not made, I don't have a
It's
job.
yeah. It's
It's that
look,
simple.
Ron. It's really interesting because you're talking about leadership qualities. I call them treasures. You know,
Yeah.
because most people, if they want to pivot or they want to take that leap or step to become leader, they need someone like you to help them discover those qualities. Sorry, those treasures. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Can you walk me through the process? Because you have individuals, leaders, they strongly believe, think they have what it takes to lead, but most of the time they need someone like you to help them. So if you can just, for the listeners, if you can walk us through, let's say, a case study or a process, how do you do it?
I think a lot of it goes back to talking to the individual
Mhm.
himself or herself and making sure that indeed the individual wants to pursue a true leadership position,
Mhm.
leadership role. Not everybody wants to do it, and not everybody should do it either. And a lot of it just goes back to what are your long-term interests? Think about this because your life and again that how you're spending your time at work is going to change drastically. I'll give you an example. I have a client in
Mhm.
the Midwest, and they are a, heavy duty towing company. They go out on the highways, and sadly, if
Mhm.
there's a terrible
So it's a
accident,
recovery.
they have the equipment to
Yeah.
recovery.
Mhm.
They'll right the vehicles that have overturned and
Yeah.
just those kinds of things. We are talking about trucks and equipment that retails for
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
over a million
Yeah,
dollars.
it's a
So I mean,
heavy
this is no
duty
kidding around
equipment,
stuff.
and yeah, the guys
Yes,
they are
yes,
professionals. They know exactly what. Yeah.
right, exactly right. Privately
Hmm.
owned. Okay, the owner of the company, his son is one of the best operators of this equipment that there is out there. He is just amazing
Yeah.
with it, just
Yeah.
amazing. He has said over and over and over, he's in
Hmm.
his late 20s now. I want to run this company. Definitely want to run this company. I'm going to be running this company someday. And
Yeah.
his dad wants him to.
Mm.
He does want him to, except except Jacob loves being on that truck.
Ah.
He loves being out there in the field. And those are some of the conversations we've had with him. I'm going out there again in the first week of December, and we're going to need to talk to him because, like, if you want to run this company, you're not going to be on that truck
Absolutely.
much anymore at all. Once in a while, just to keep your feet wet and those sorts of things. Because again, Sid, as we were talking about, the
Mm. They
competencies
are.
are different. And Jacob's going to need to make that decision. No one else.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
one else. And again, so much of it boils down to what's right for the company and what's right for you, the
I
individual.
mean, look, he's young. Based on the case you were talking about, he's young. He loves the operation side of the business, and the time will come. The time will come for him to take that decision to let go of the toy. A boy with the toy. So it's absolutely,
That's right.
yeah, Ron.
Exactly
If
right.
yeah,
Yes.
if you need to give us, let's say, the top five in your list in terms of top five qualities that every leader should have, or top three. Mm-hmm.
Emotional intelligence, hand in hand with that, Sid, empathy, and empathy is a part of emotional intelligence. I'm going to say
Mm-hmm.
too, being humble, which is part of emotional intelligence as well, and also knowing your strengths and knowing your limitations, and being comfortable sharing those with people. I shared earlier with you,
Mm,
I'm good at what
mm,
I do, and I am, and I'm proud of that. I
mhm,
facilitate well. I'm good at asking questions. I draw information out of people really well, and I'm good at that. And I'm very comfortable going
mm,
down the other side of my limitations. I'm not
mhm.
strong technically. I never have been. I never will be. And that's okay. Is that if something goes haywire technically during our session, and I hope it doesn't, I don't know what to do. We had a little bit of a problem right before we started. The best way I know is exactly what we did. Sit them in a log off and log back on. In addition, I also don't write particularly well. I kind of struggle with that when I need to write an article or
Mm.
write a coaching summary. Yeah, can I write it? Of course I can. It's not a strength of mine. I depend upon my wife to help me with the grammar and just those sorts of things. I
Mm.
know that about myself, and I think that's a critical aspect for leaders as well.
And where do you place resilience and honesty in that list?
Oh, and again, Sid, it's such a critical part, which is also part of
Mm,
emotional intelligence. One of the best traits leaders can have too is just to, hey, folks, I was wrong. I apologize. I made a mistake. Whatever it might be. And I mean, I remember, I'll go in
mm,
the opposite direction. I worked at an organization quite a few years ago now. And one of the leaders, I had suggested to one of the leaders, she was the VP of sales. And we had brought in a vendor to do a lot of sales training, and the sales training was fabulous. In order to reinforce it, about 6 months later, I made the suggestion to her. Everybody in the company was going to be together. I was like, let's just do a sales call on stage. Let's just role play a sales call, and we can give feedback. We'll talk about what went well and everything else. And she flat out refused. Absolutely not. I will not do it. I could look bad, and that makes me
mhm.
weak in front of others. And I was like, that is the biggest mistake you can possibly
Yeah.
make. I mean, just again, so I can't make mistakes. I'm the VP of sales. Who cares? We all make
Maybe she missed one part
mistakes.
that we are humans and yeah, we make mistakes.
Yeah, she missed your podcast.
Ron, emotional intelligence is at the heart of your work. Why is self awareness the foundation of emotional intelligence for leaders?
I personally believe. Let me tell you a story, if I may. I have been a New York Giants season ticket holder for many many
Hmm.
years over here in the United States. We were tailgating one day, and my friend Peter came up to me. Peter is the chief financial officer for a technology firm in Manhattan. And half kiddingly, half seriously, he was saying, he was okay, Mr. Leadership Development Man, throw me the one tip that can make me the best leader possible. I was like, all right, Peter, let me think about it a bit and I'll get back to you. I did think about it, and I'm dead serious. Well, I was dead serious when I said to him, and I'm totally serious when I say to you. I think one of the most important things anybody can do in order to be successful is to get to know yourself
Mm.
extraordinarily well, just extraordinarily well. Because the better you know yourself, the more effectively you will work with other people. It's what we were talking about earlier, Sid. What are your strengths? What are your limitations? What are the things that can trigger you at work? You've got to be aware of that. How comfortable are you apologizing to others? How comfortable are you making yourself vulnerable to others? And just those sorts of things. Telling stories about yourself, good and bad. Just all of these things. When you know yourself, that's when you will be most effective with others. And research
Yeah,
backs that up.
yeah. Let's talk about feedback. Feedback, especially when negative, often triggers defensive from people. How do you guide leaders in breaking through this barrier?
The most important aspect of feedback for me, when anybody is delivering feedback, I always emphasize your feedback needs to be non judgmental. And it's not hard to deliver non judgmental feedback to people. Simply, the focus needs to be on what did your colleague say? What did your colleague do? That's non judgmental feedback. There's not a label attached. I'm not calling you something. I'm talking to you about what you said or what you did. And that is mission
Mm.
critical. I had a, a friend of mine, Rich has been my friend. He's been a mentor for many years. When we didn't know each other that well, many years ago, we were doing a session together in Cleveland. And he gets very passionate when he presents. And he was standing in front of the screen with a slide up. And so his entire, he was visible on the whole screen. And he's so into it. I mean, it was actually funny. Okay, everybody, this is it. All right, let's take a break. Hey, Rich, can I talk to you for a minute? As he came over to sit down. Yeah, what is it, Ron? Rich, while you were presenting, I just saw you standing in front of the screen. It
Mm.
distracted me. I have to believe it distracted the others as well. Maybe next time, Rich, just stand off to the side so you're not visible on the screen.
Yeah.
You don't know Rich, you'll never meet him. I wish you could sit. He's a
Mm.
fabulous guy. How do you think Rich reacted to my feedback?
I hope he took it
I
positively.
just saw you. This was many years ago. I
Yeah,
can quote, I still remember, Ron, thank you. There's only one way I know how to get better, and that's by getting
fantastic.
feedback.
Yeah,
Non judgmental, what he did. I didn't say, Rich, you're a
yeah.
lousy presenter. That presentation was really bad, Rich. No, it wasn't. There was a piece of it that he needed to
Mm.
refine. So I pointed out what he did. And that again is so
Yeah,
critical. What did the person say? What did the person do? No labels attached.
yeah. That's a great example, Ron. Every leader wants a high performing team, but what do you see as the first critical step in building one?
I think one of the most critical steps is knowing number one, what you want to accomplish long term, what's your ultimate goal. Number two, what type of people do you need on your team, and making sure that you hire the right people and that you have the right people in the right seats on the
Mm.
bus. And that is one of the most critical things. Assume that's the case, that we have the right people there. For me, it's all about letting them leverage their strengths, let them work together, and just almost just help each other, as it were. And I mean, one of the best things I can do is just get the heck out of the way. Let people do their thing. When they're highly confident and highly motivated, go for it. I'm here to support you. I'll help you. I'll check in with you occasionally just to see how things are going or if you need any help. I think that's one of the best things, though, is just to let people go do their thing. I mean, I do that in my
Mm.
sessions now, where when I wrap up, what I like to do if I'm doing if I've done a leadership session, I'll just put them in small groups and just say to them, guys, I'm going to give you a half an hour here. Use this time however you want. Use it however you want. I'm not going to dictate to you. If you want to just talk to each other about, hey, these are some things I learned, this is what I'm going to use. If you want to talk about specific situations, that you want to address and get some feedback from your other
Mm.
colleagues here. The point for me is, here's your time, use it most effectively. I trust you. Again, you want to sit there and drink coffee and talk about nothing, that's
Mm.
up to you. Except that's not a very good use of
Mm.
anybody's time. So I mean, I hope that makes
Yeah, yeah, it
sense.
does. It does. Ron, there is one common issue. that we always see in various individuals and mainly leaders, decision makers. Or quite often, you have leaders, they are very, let's say, they take a step back when it comes to change, to implement something new. They are afraid, they are suspicious about new thing. How do you tackle this kind of personality resistance within a leader or a team members?
What I like this, I'm gonna go back to something I
Hmm.
mentioned earlier. Sid, I am a voracious reader. Number one, anytime there's going to be a change, the ultimate goal needs to be the focus for people. This is the reason we're doing this, everybody. This is where we're going with this. This is the reason it's so important we get this done. That's the
Hmm.
raw piece. And I always say to people when I'm taking them through the change module, does everybody buy into the rah? No,
Which is
no, they
kind
don't,
of
and that's okay.
motivational,
Exactly.
motivational
The
speech.
cheerleading. Hey, let's go. This is the reason we're doing this, everybody. You're going to have your
Yeah,
doubters. You're going to have your
yeah.
resistors in the audience. Fine. I still remember many, many years ago reading in a book, anytime you are taking a change is occurring in an organization or in a department, whatever it might be, share the goal, yes. In addition, always share what your fears are if nothing changes.
Mm.
Hey guys, if we don't change this, if we don't modify this or we don't implement this, these are the problems we're going to face. One of the best examples I can give you, so many years ago, I worked for
Hmm.
Toshiba. We reorganized. We had a new general manager slash CEO come on board for our very small division. Okay. Brian's goal for coming on board, and it was a huge change. We needed to double market share in 4 years. That was the change. Double market share. Okay, fine. He came on board. Everybody east of the Mississippi River was invited to a meeting, and he did the same thing on the West Coast. What he told us, again, the rah. Folks, we're going to double market share in 4 years. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be super. We'll have so much fun going through this. Everybody's cheering, and not everybody bought into it. And I'll never forget, once he finished that part of it, okay, let's look at the other
Mm.
side, everybody. Let's look at the other side of this. If we don't double market share in 4 years, and here come his fears, Rico, Sharp, Konica are competitors. They will eat our lunch. This division closes if we don't double market share in 4 years. So let's go out there and double market share, folks. He got
Yeah,
both sides.
yeah.
And I love that. I absolutely love
Great,
that.
great. Ron, trust is the glue that binds teams together. What can leaders do if trust is broken within a team? It's not an easy question.
No, my initial thought, if trust is broken within a team, clearly people need to spend some
Mm.
more time together
Okay.
and just talking about what's going on here. Where is the lack of trust developing? Where is it coming from? Is it a personality conflict? Have there been issues just working together? Whatever it might be, the key thing is get together, let's talk it through. And I'm going to circle back again that the better you know people, the more effectively you will work with them. And instantly letting people know if I need to apologize, I will. And if it's two people, on my team where there's a lack of trust, I'll ask them to try to work it out themselves. And if they're not able to do that, I'll
Mm.
intervene. I'll facilitate a conversation here, and as best as possible, just hey guys, what's going on here, and ultimately getting to some sort of resolution, ideally, and realizing, Sid, you know what? What's going on here? I think you owe Mary an apology. Or the opposite side, Mary, you know what? After having talked, look what's going on here. Those sorts of things. It's counterintuitive for me. And again, it came out of a book that I read. There was someone I worked with
Hmm.
many years ago that I did
Hmm.
not trust. I didn't like him. I didn't trust him, and I didn't want to spend time with him. One day he came to me. It was late. It was maybe 2:15, 2:30, or whatever. He hadn't had lunch yet. He was really hungry. And ironically, I hadn't eaten. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to go to lunch?" I just kind of looked at him. My initial thought, VRD, which we talked about before. No, I don't want to go to lunch with you. And I just, yeah, okay, Pete, let's go to lunch. We had so much
Here
fun,
we go.
and I got to
Yeah.
know him better. I'm not going to sit here because it's not true. I won't sit here and tell you, oh, we became
Yeah. Yeah.
friends and
Yeah.
we worked
Yeah.
beautifully together. We still have our differences. Getting to
It's
know each other
yeah.
better, though, and
Yeah.
understanding his philosophies a little
Mm.
bit more and him understanding me allowed us to be at least
Mm.
more effective.
I believe the lack of trust, or for whatever reason, is broken because lack of communication. That's,
Yes.
I think, is the first cause. And the minute you engage with an open, positive communication, not judgmental, not pointing a finger, not starting a conversation for the sake of
Mhm.
to go to fight with someone, or I think it's a key.
Right.
It's a key. And
Yes,
your
I agree.
example, absolutely, it's well spot on. It's well spot on. You said earlier, on conflict, and we know conflict is unavoidable in any team. What's your approach to helping leaders turn conflict into an opportunity for growth?
Going back to ideally having a conversation. And where I'm going with this, there's a very, very simple model that I like to recommend when anybody is dealing with a situation, whether it's a personality conflict, whether it's a work conflict, whatever it might be. Just very, very simply, if I need to have a
Mm.
conversation with you, Sid, I'm struggling with fill in the blank. Once I have done that, the next question I ask you very simply is, and research shows this is the best question to ask. Be honest with me. How do you see it?
Yes. Yeah.
A conversation almost always, again, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, always and shoes. No, ideally, a conversation starts and we talk and we can talk it through. Will it always go swimmingly? Come on.
Mm.
Of course not. Of course not. The point for me, though, is this is a great starting point. Just a great
Mm.
starting point. Sid, I'm struggling with the fact that we haven't met our targets for the last
Mhm.
3 months, and that really has my attention. Be honest with me. How do you see it? Well, Ron, yeah, again, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter. There are so many different areas where this is applicable. I have used this on many occasions, and it has worked very well for the most part,
Mm.
not always.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Ron, what do you say to leaders where they use the same lyric? It's become like a kind of a music, and we hear it time and time again from many leaders. And they use this sentence where they say, it's not personal, it's professional. And yet again, what comes from their mouth, what they say, will hurt and will trigger some kind of emotion to the other side. Could be a staff, could be subordinate, could be yeah.
First of all, everything's personal because we're human
I like.
beings, and even again, yeah, I think for me, and I truly believe that this is such an incredible opportunity that so many leaders and so many organizations
Mm.
miss, that the need for recognition and the need for respect, and to give people praise and recognition regularly throughout their tenure with any organization, with any tenure within an organization. And just doing that consistently, doing that sincerely, for me, helps to make the difficult conversations easier. If you and I have a relationship, and I have been telling you throughout our time, if we just for argument's sake, we've been working together for 2.5 years and consistently said, I'm really happy, with this aspect of your work. Sit, I'd like you to sit in on this
Hmm.
meeting with us. Just whatever it might be. And also giving you developmental feedback along the way, non-judgmental. If we need to sit down and have a really difficult conversation, my experience has been it makes those difficult conversations easier, and the individual is also more likely to accept what you have to say. They may not like it, of course not. I get that. It's still going to make it easier.
Yeah, yeah. Ron, have you dealt in the past or recently with leaders that suffers from burnout?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sure,
Uh,
sure.
Usually burnout, of course, many reasons, but usually it comes from many setbacks, comes from doing the same thing for quite a long time, or yes, lack of performance, and they don't reach their targets and they feel like they're going nowhere. How do you try to put it this way? Maybe it's wrong what I'm going to say, but I will say it anyway. How do you reboot the mindset?
For me personally, it's happened to me, and I've seen it happen to other people. Very, very often, there's one word that occurs or that can tie into
Hmm.
burnout. And for me, it's ego.
Okay.
I think so many people, and I did it in the past to myself. No one else was accountable for this except me. Only I can do this. I'm the one. I need to be involved in everything. I'll go to that meeting. I'll fly to California. No, and then next week I'm going to go down to Alabama, and then I'm going to do it because I'm the only one that's capable of doing this. They need me, and I think such a big part of it is it's going to go back to the effective teams that
Hmm.
we talked about. Let people do their thing. You've again, Eddie, if you have competent people on your team, there is no reason for you to be involved in everything. I got into it with a president of a small healthcare company in Rhode Island quite a few years ago now. We were talking about this exact thing, using time effectively. And he was saying to me at the end of our session, "You didn't give me any tools. You didn't help me." And I was like, "I see that totally differently, Frank. Totally differently. You are involved in everything. You're telling me I go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, and I'm so busy, and you didn't help me with that." And I was like, "Yeah, I did. I just told you don't need to be in every meeting, or what makes you think you need to be in every meeting? When do you prepare for these meetings? And what makes it so critical that you're the one that has to make every single decision based on what occurs in these meetings? See those people out there and all those desks out there? They're all working. Maybe they could make some of the decisions
Yeah,
too."
yeah, yeah. Fascinating, Ron. I think now it's time for our lightning round. You ready for speedy Q&A?
Go ahead.
Good. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received, Ron?
That's easy. Talking to an old boss, Joe, working at a
Hmm.
pharmaceutical company. He was giving me my performance appraisal. We were talking about my increase and my bonus, and I was happy with everything. And I made a comment to him about how I admired one of my colleagues, David. I said, "David is so well rounded, Joe. And I mean, he just knows so much about so many different things." And he was like, "Ron, that's because David reads." And he said, "If you want to become more well rounded and you want to become a resource to people, start reading. Start reading." He said, "Do you think you can read 10 pages a day, 5 days a week?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
I can
advice.
do that. So do that. I've done that over the past 23 years, whatever it is. I've read over 400
Yeah,
leadership books. And what an incredible
yeah.
difference it has made. And I thank him all the time. Joe, thank you, thank you, thank you for that advice.
Excellent. If you could have a dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Mm. Oh my. Uh, I'm not sure I can pick one. I think I'd love to have dinner with like some
Hmm.
ex-presidents and just talk
Which one?
about what the job any. And I'm serious. You know, the one who's popping into my mind for whatever reason, President Lincoln, so
Yeah,
many years ago. I would love to talk to him about what was going on for you? What were the biggest challenges you faced? How did you overcome them? What were some of the mistakes you made? And what would you do differently now? I mean, I would love to be able to do
mm,
that.
great, great. Favorite way to unwind after a long day?
I am an introvert. So I re energize by being quiet and just not doing a whole lot at the end of a
Hmm.
day. What I love to do, I will come home from a session, or even if I haven't had a session that day, have dinner with my wife. You know, we'll chat and just everything else. I'll play with the dog just a
Hmm.
little bit. We'll watch the news, we'll watch TV, we'll read together, whatever it
Yeah,
might be. And that for me re-energizes me. Equally as important though, I'm also a very early riser.
mm,
And I like to get up really early and exercise almost every single day. And that's very, very important to me because that energizes me throughout the
good.
day.
One leadership book that changed your perspective.
There's so many of them. I think one of the best ones I've ever read was called The
Hmm.
Advantage, written by Patrick Lencioni. And what he talks about in the book is a lot of what we've been discussing, the importance of having the right people in the right seats on the bus, and how critical it is to have a mission statement so that it is your guiding light to make decisions. He talks in the book about how to develop the mission statement, how to prioritize what needs to happen organizationally for the mission to be completed. Just an overall excellent book. Just
Good,
excellent.
good. What's the most misunderstood aspect of leadership?
I think so many leaders misunderstand the need to be human. And one of the activities I do in my leadership sessions, first thing actually, and I'll be doing it Thursday because I have a session Thursday. We'll break into small groups. Folks, just write down on flip charts. What are your major roles as a leader? So, and from a big picture perspective, they'll write everything down. I write it down. I see you grabbing a book. And I always ask them, what's interesting about your lists? There's overlap and there's some other things, fine. How much technical information is on your lists? And they always say next to none. And I was like, that's right. What does that say to you about what your role is as a leader? Oh, we need to be human. Right.
Okay, coffee or tea?
Both. I drink a mug of coffee in the
Hmm.
morning. I'll drink a cup of coffee and then I switch to green tea, which is what I have here.
Good, good, good. What's your favorite sport to watch or play?
Probably American
Hmm.
football. And one of the reasons I'll tie it into what we've been talking about. I love the competition. That's fun for me. In addition, I am fascinated by the strategy and how each week, the different game plans that the leaders, the coaches need to come up with, and just uh, how these organizations are run. And some of them are run extremely well. So, the team I root for, the Giants, not so
Hmm.
much. And I mean, and I truly believe, Sid, I really, really do. I think one of the problems the Giants have is at the very, very top. I think our ownership is a big, big problem that we don't have the right people in the right seats, and it's costing us
Yeah.
big time.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
a moment in your career that made you proud?
Two, if I may. Working for
Hmm.
Toshiba, uh, best boss I ever had in my career, Barbara Fulmer was her name. She came to see me do a class in
Hmm.
New Jersey, 3-day class. Barbara used to have a 15-page form that she used to evaluate us. There were competencies and you could earn certain points for everything. There were 180 possible points you could get
Hmm.
on this form. We talked at the end of day one and at the end of day two, and everything was going well. At the end of day three, she came up to me, and she was tough. Sid. She was a great boss. She was she just she was just really, really, really good. I just keep saying that. Anyway, I'll never forget, Ron. This has never happened in my career before. You were flawless.
Wow.
You were
Wow.
flawless. You got 179 points out of the 180. And I was like, okay. And of course, my question was, what did you take a point off for? And she laughed. She goes, your pants weren't ironed as well today. I took 1 point off. Fine. The other one was getting promoted by my boss, Joe, at the
Hmm.
pharma. Same thing. Very, very good boss, very demanding, very, very on top of things. And get promoted by him was something of which I'm very
Mm.
proud.
Excellent. Excellent. Ron, if you could master any new skill overnight, what would it be?
Hmm. I think sometimes, Sid, as much as I continue to work on it, and I am a work in progress, is truly speaking my mind more more quickly than I do. Sometimes I still need some prodding. If I have a different perspective in
Hmm.
situations, there are still times when I'm somewhat hesitant to speak up. And I'd love to be able to get better at that overnight. Still working on it, making progress, and I will hope to make progress until I take my last breath.
Okay. What's your worst career advice you ever gotten?
The worst
Hmm.
career advice. Hmm. God, I have to think about that. Uh, I think rather than advice, I think I'll share with you a comment an old boss made to me one time, which just made me almost fall out of my chair. And she was like, "I don't reward performance that much. I reward loyalty to the department and the
Hmm.
organization. The people who were here the longest are the ones who get the biggest raises and the biggest, uh, the best evaluations and those kinds of things." I was like, "Wow, okay, I'm not going to be here long." And I was.
And finally, Ron, what's your advice to our listeners on any topic?
Get to know yourself very, very well. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. Get to know yourself as well as you possibly can. And when that occurs, that's going to allow you to be yourself. That's going to allow you to handle situations as best you know how and allow you to interact and work with others most effectively.
Yeah. Ron, before we wrap up, how can people reach out to you if they need to connect or seek advice? What's the best way?
Any, the best way to reach me is probably via
Hmm.
LinkedIn. Just very simply, Ron Reich, Reich, name of my company, RLB, Training and Development. And I welcome the chance to chat with anybody. And Sid, when I say chat, I mean that. It's not the type of thing where it's like it's going to be a sales pitch or, oh, I need to charge you for this. Absolutely not. I welcome the chance to talk with anybody. And yeah, we decide to work together. Wonderful. If not, I'm certainly glad to have the conversation.
Ronald Reich, thank you very much for being with us today.
Sid, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
And once again, thank you for sharing your wisdom and stories. Conversation like this remind us why leadership at its best is about lifting others up. And I will leave you with one quote from famous coach UCLA, John Wooden. Things turn out best for the people who make the best of the way things turn out. That's the spirit of resilience, adaptability, and leadership we've discussed today. Thank you for listening to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast. Until next time, I'm Sid Ben Salah. Lead well, live well, and make every moment count.
Shows